I mean, we're going to go, but you're probably mostly on Facebook, all the things, in case you're anywhere else. One of the biggest things in social media is so different for business than it is for personal. So probably everybody's on it for personal. You might have a Facebook page, you might dabble in things. When you look at doing it for business, everything changes. So I wanted to see who in here is, running your social media for your nonprofit. Is that everybody is running that on your own? Fun. Yeah.
Love it.
Okay. Yeah. So who absolutely loves social media marketing? The young ones. Yeah. So one of my favorite phrases is failing to plan is planning to fail. One of the easiest things you can do on social media marketing is planning ahead by making a content calendar and figuring out your strategy. And strategy is such a big scary word. And so what I wanted to do today is just talk about the importance of.
I'm sorry? Yeah, no, I've got a webinar running, but that's fine.
How to make your brand immediately recognizable. So branding might seem like something that is kind of high level or not necessary, but there's some key factors that will help your brand to stand out and to kind of cut through that noise of social media. Because there's literally 1,000 posts every time anybody opens up their feed. So then we'll talk about what, where, and when to post. So that is going to be, that's a lot of information because every platform is slightly different, which is also very fun. But then we'll talk about how you can plan your content per platform, because really you're talking to different people on each one in most cases. And then the best thing is best practices on social media. It's really easy to put it down to the bottom of your to-do list and just kind of post something just to post. And I never really recommend that. It's better to have quality over quantity. So we'll talk about how to plan. And then I have a resources sheet that has literally every tool that I use. Some of them are paid, most of them are free. And then we'll talk about scheduling, boosting posts using hashtags, tagging other companies like Give. And then, yeah, so you guys can take those and use them, as you will. So a little bit about me. I've had my business for 7 years. I live social media marketing. So I've done a little bit of everything from sales to, I worked in restaurants forever. I was in health insurance. And then working in social media marketing, I've worked with nonprofits. I've worked with small businesses. So it's just kind of all over the place. So I have a really good grasp on, what works for different companies, but specifically we'll talk about nonprofit stuff today. So if you have it in your head, what you want to learn today, make sure if we don't cover it that you ask me. So I am an open book. Everything in my head is here for you guys. So whatever I can help you out with. So talking about branding, social media is just the best way to get in front of your audience every day, mostly because it's free. A lot of the platforms are becoming pay to play, and that's why I wanted to include boosting in this. But it's easy for everybody to get into. Everybody's on it. So, and it being semi-free, you can post for free every day if you wanted to. But when you're looking at branding specifically, so if you're thinking about all these different companies, they're immediately recognizable. So even if you have a small company, branding is so important. And a couple of things that you can do that are actually really easy is looking at, colors and looking at what your mission is and what your values are. So some of the things we can automatically recognize, McDonald's, Hallmark, Tropicana, Target, you see those and you automatically know by the colors and by the branding what that post is going to be about. The biggest thing is that this establishes trust with the community and with your consumers and with your donors. So a consistent brand voice increases trust by up to 33% and loyalty by up to 19%. And 86% of consumers say an authentic brand voice influences their support of that brand. So it's really important as a nonprofit, if you're asking people to give you their money, that you establish that trust. So a couple things that you can think about when you're trying to establish your brand voice is, oh, there's that stat. is what is your mission? What are your values? So if you write down, keywords that relate to your brand, like what adjectives describe your nonprofit, and then becoming really authentic and clear about what that is. So using very simple language, not using like your nonprofit jargon. Like if I were to use marketing jargon, nobody would know what I was talking about. So just being very clear and concise. A couple of things that you can look at is, what is your mission? What's your vision? What are your values? And then who are you speaking to as your target audience? Because a nonprofit that is relating to, like with National Mill Dog Rescue, they're targeting dogs and dog lovers and nationwide audience. A smaller nonprofit who's just local is going to be targeting somebody completely different, and those brand voices should be different and tailored to your audience. And then when you're looking at colors, so on colors, you really only want like 2 to 3 primary colors in your logo and in your designs. It's really easy to like just pick a template off Canva. Probably most of us use Canva or some kind of like, I call it like cheatery graphic design software because it's so easy. You just pull something and slap your logo on it. And that's where it's really important to, even if you're going to take something off of a template, make it your colors, make sure that you're using, adding your logo. And then, so you have 2 to 3 primary colors and 2 to 3 like secondary or like highlight colors. And then these are just examples of colors that, and you can Google this, there's a million articles that talk about, blue establishes trust or green establishes money. But just as an example of how you want to be seen, your colors really do make a difference. And then fonts are really important too. So again, with Canva, it's, or any kind of graphic design software, I mean, it's really easy to just pull something that looks beautiful, but it's not representative of you. And really you want, every single time somebody sees a post of yours on social media, you really want them to be like, oh, that's this nonprofit immediately. Just the same way they would with like Target or Apple. So there's this really, I think I put it on the resources guide, there's a font pairing generator that you can use, and it'll actually show you which fonts work well together. So even if you're not a graphic designer, or you're not super artistic, there's a lot of tools online that you can use. And then making brand, and all of this goes to say, it's making your brand guidelines. So some of you might already have like a brand book, and those can range from something that is, 30 pages long that has all the justifications of your logo and your colors and the whole shebang. And it really doesn't have to be anything that's that intensive. When you're looking at branding, it's really something that just has what fonts you should use, what colors you should use, where your logo placement should be. If you want to use, like you want your logo to be skewed or straight, just stuff like that, so that you can hand that brand guideline to anybody, whether they're doing your website or your social media, or they're making graphics for you to put on flyers, and then they can all follow that same thing. So then everything becomes super cohesive. And then that, whatever you're putting on your website should relate to your social media, should relate to your handouts and anything that's out in the public eye. So having brand guidelines is very easy, and it doesn't really have to be this huge thing. If you do want to get a brand guide, like a really official one made, you can get one on Fiverr for like $75. Another thing that I like to do on my brand guidelines is I'll take everything from hashtags to companies that are competitors, to companies that are ones that we want to emulate, and kind of link those in. So then again, anybody who's working on your stuff can see those and see what you're trying to go towards and how they should be designing your things. And then also, well, we'll talk about hashtags a little bit later. But do you guys have questions about like brand guidelines or how those should be made or how easy they are? Okay. So what, when, and where to post is probably one of the biggest things. Just because you can post on social media every day doesn't mean that you should. Again, because the algorithm is constantly changing and there's so much noise on social media. So every single platform has a different demographic and different target audience. So another thing that's fun about all of these platforms is they will deprioritize your posts if they deem it to be overly promotional. So that's something that seems really counterintuitive, because every single time you want to post on social media and you're saying, come see us, register for this, click this external link, donate, those algorithms and those bots are picking that up and they're saying, okay, well, this is overly promotional, it's not providing value. And so it decreases your reach and engagement. So fun, because that is what we're trying to use social media for. So a lot of the things that you can do, you don't want to make everything promotional. It's not about just getting on social media and blasting stuff out. It's not supposed to be a bulletin board. Social media is really supposed to be social. And that's why I love it so much, because it's really supposed to be something where you're sharing your mission, telling stories, inspiring people. Calls to action are really important. You don't want to ask your followers to be doing something every time, because nobody wants to be scrolling through their feed like while they're relaxing and just being told to do things. So offering really high value. These can be like tips, ways that your donations are going to benefit your nonprofit, like behind the scenes stories, heart-wrenching things. It doesn't always have to be sad, because there's enough sadness in the world. So I think, you know, as positive as you can be on social media, the better. Also, user-generated content is huge. It's just been growing and growing. And that's just, if you can get your followers, your donors, your volunteers, your staff to take their own pictures, post it on social media, and then tag you, and then you can share that. That's huge, because then that shows the algorithm and it shows your donors and your other followers that you're a real person, you're more than just a logo, that there are real people in the world that care about your nonprofit. And then, again, just being super authentic is huge. So be a real human being. Don't be afraid to get on camera and do a little video. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be authentic and really show. I feel like the point of social media is to show people before they meet you, before they walk in your doors, and definitely before they donate, who you are, what you're about, what your mission is. And that's so much more than just asking people to donate 1,000 times. So it really takes a little bit of effort, but if you can engage, even if you have a very small team, if you can engage your board, your leadership, your employees, your volunteers, everybody to kind of get involved in social media, it becomes a lot easier to gather that content. I always like to go real images over stock. And again, it's just the algorithms seem to like real images. When they see a stock image, there's all this metadata on the back end, and so they don't like that. I like you shaking, nodding your head. So, but, and then in addition to these kind of things, like just offering really easy ways to donate and get involved is super important. So I mean, we're lazy. We just want to scroll through social media and like be entertained, not be told to do things, but also if you have a need and you're asking people to donate, make it super simple. With the Give campaign specifically, it's really easy because you can just link to your profile. But again, it's sharing with people why they should give to this specific campaign and why they should give to your nonprofit, as opposed to the hundreds of other nonprofits that are in town, or the other causes, you know, that they give to every year. And especially because this happens at the end of the year, it's just so important to be really clear about where their dollars go and how they're going to help you. So pull at those heartstrings in a positive way if you can. So feel good stories, like we're working on this for National Mill Dog Rescue, is doing like tops to bots stories where we're showing the dog coming off so we rescue dogs nationwide from puppy mills. So it's real sad. But instead of doing like time, we're trying to move to a more positive direction so that people don't visit our page and get depressed. So yeah. So there's always a positive angle on anything. That is why I'm so optimistic about my job all the time. So we're doing something where we're showing them in the puppy mill, then showing them coming to the rescue, showing somebody care for them, their first grooming, their first bed, getting adopted, getting their vaccinations, and then doing follow-up stories. So even though it starts out really sad, moving it to happy. So you can relate that to mostly anything. I feel like if we can do it for dogs who come into us in this way, you could probably do it for most anything. So sad to happy stories are really good. Make people cry. but in a good way. And then choosing the social media platforms that make sense for your brand. So when I first started marketing social media, everybody was on everything, and that was what you needed to do. Nowadays, it's really about picking what is going to. Did you guys see that Twitter rebranded? Yeah, that's what this little guy is. I know, I was so confused. I was like, what's the X on my phone? I don't really use Twitter, but every single platform, you're talking to a different set of people. So the Twitter things that I'm going to go over they're relating to Twitter. Elon Musk is changing all of those things. So we'll skim over those, but those will change. And as those do, we can roll out that information. But looking at Facebook, so we'll talk about, all the like graphics and video sizing, your ideal demographic, your feed focus, post frequency, hashtag sharing, all that stuff. So starting with Facebook, the square posts work well, or you can do, if you use Canva, it has a Facebook post. So I'm a really big fan of doing work one time instead of 18,000 times. So if you can use a square post on Facebook and Instagram and X, and LinkedIn, do something like that, because you can use the same graphic, across these platforms. It's really your language that's going to be changing. For Facebook, literally everyone's on Facebook, even though a lot of people are using it to like check on their families or see a business is special or whatnot. But really your biggest demo is between 25 and up. So even 18-year-olds are getting on Facebook just to check things. But yeah, I was thinking it was going to go down with TikTok and then with Instagram and just with all the things that happened with Facebook in the past few years. It's such a monster, it's really not going anywhere. So the best thing we can do is embrace it and try to beat that algorithm. So with Facebook specifically, I would focus more. So when I talk about your feed, that's what's on your main profile, as opposed to stories, which are little things that go up on the top that are only available for 24 hours. So I would focus more on the feed for your nonprofit for like posts about where their dollars are going, shout outs to other nonprofits, shout outs to give that we're doing on Wednesdays, and then any kind of events that you're doing. And then it's really easy also to add, if you're fundraising beforehand, to add that donate button on Facebook and Instagram. And then stories, I would do spur of the moment updates like behind the scenes. You can always add a link in there where people can go to your page and donate. But as hard as it is to not post every single day, you really don't need to post more than like 3 times a week. I mean, if you are under 10,000 followers, is anybody above 10,000 followers? Okay, so yours is a little bit different. You can post as much as you want. It is a lot. Anyone who's under 10,000 followers, more than once a day, it just hinders your reach and engagement. So like 3 times a week is a good number. If you can do more consistently, then you can do more, but you're really not going to see like a whole huge difference unless your audience is crazy engaged on every single post. For over 10,000, I mean, you really can post, you could post multiple times a day and do more. I'm struggling thinking about it every day. It's so hard. So yeah, it is. And so what I do when I build, well, I'm jumping ahead. Okay, so content calendar stuff is actually really easy, but I'm excited to share that with you guys because I can put through a content calendar shell in like 15 minutes for a client. And in the past, it's taken hours and hours and hours, and it really just doesn't have to be that hard. So hopefully that will be helpful. So with stories, if you guys are posting stories like those behind the scenes or events or videos or little clips of your team, you could do those all day long if you want. So if you want to post on stories and that's something that excites you and your people are engaging with that, that's a good way to kind of balance where if you're posting a few times a week on your feed and then you're posting a bunch on your stories. And then back to like the type of content that you could post, it doesn't always have to be the people that you're helping. People want to see the real people behind the scenes. They want to see your team. They want to see leadership. They want to see you guys eating lunch together or laughing or even just working. Time lapses are really fun. If you can do a time lapse on your phone and you can just set it up in a corner and just film the area in which you work. People love it. It's just very satisfying. So if you haven't given that a try, I would definitely give that a try. On your feed copy, so using the brand hashtags. So when you're building out your brand, you want to have a brand hashtag, and typically that'll be something like for National Mill Dog Rescue, or we use our acronym, or we'll use both. Typically on Facebook, you really want to use your brand hashtag and then 1 to 2 hashtags that have to do with your content. So I'm sure you guys have seen if somebody, because Instagram is different, people will repost from their Instagram feed to their Facebook feed, and then you have all these hashtags. I mean, it really doesn't do you any good on Facebook, and it kind of looks bad. So if you have, like, let's say you're cross-posting from Instagram to Facebook, build out your Instagram post and then just edit your copy on the Facebook side to remove a lot of those hashtags. It just looks more clean and polished, and it's really not doing you any good to have a million hashtags on Facebook.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
My old brain. What do you mean by your branding hashtag?
So it would be typically your name. So what's the name of your nonprofit?
That's Porchlight Friends.
Porchlight Friends?
Porchlight Friends.
Porchlight, is it 2 words?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I would just do hashtag Porchlight Friends.
Okay. So do you have to set that up?
No,
Okay.
so a hashtag is just the pound
Yeah,
sign.
and I've done the
And-
hashtag, but I just didn't know that I could just put my own
Oh, yeah,
name in there.
Yep.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And what's nice about hashtags is it groups everything together. So if anybody else is looking for your organization and they enter in that hashtag,
Mhm.
all the posts that you've posted with that will then pop up. So it's also nice if you're ever trying to track, like, oh, when did we post this? Then what did we do here?
Yeah.
The other thing that I like to do on hashtags is to proper case the each new word.
Mm.
Even if it's a short word like or and, it feels weird and it hurts your soul if you're like a grammar person, but it helps with readability. So it's easier to see, it's easier to read if it's not all lowercase.
So what if I have the Porchlight_Friends on Instagram? Is that?
I would still do Porchlight Friends. I would just do the same hashtag, like that's your brand hashtag, Porchlight Friends. It goes on every single post.
Okay.
I have a question asking, what exactly does a hashtag do?
Yes. So it groups your conversations together. So like when we're looking at whenever we use, Give Pikes Peak or Give Here, Live Here, if you were to type that into your browser, it's going to pull up every single post that has that same hashtag. So anybody who's talking about it and using that hashtag can then see your post. Or then if you have donors and supporters who are looking for you specifically, they could just enter that in. And it's really handy for events too. So if you're ever having an event and you create a specific hashtag for that, then you just encourage everybody to use that hashtag. And then it becomes really easy as you're trying to gather content later to take those, repost them, or take their pictures for your own. And then we also have, I think we talked about this. I talked to Courtney about this months ago about sharing once a week. So if y'all are sharing, the give post once a week or creating your own give posts once a week, it just really helps with consistency and getting excitement before the campaign launches. Does anyone have a group Facebook page for their nonprofit? Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's also a really handy idea. The thing that I like about groups is you can tie it to your page. So this is Facebook specifically, or you can do groups on LinkedIn and stuff too, but on Facebook, you can make a group, you can tie it to your page, and then every single time you post in that group, every single member is notified that you made a post. So it works a little bit differently than your page that just kind of sits there unless you're boosting. And so everybody can see those, and then you can encourage people to post their own things or post their stories. It's a great way to get user-generated content and then start conversations and keep your donor base really engaged. So if you don't have a Facebook group, it's a good idea. It just takes some time to grow because you cannot run ads on Facebook groups. So there's no way to force that growth. But by encouraging, all your staff, your volunteers, your donors, anybody to join that group, then they can all get your updates. Yes, ma'am.
Going back when you were saying about the Give campaign, posting and everything, so you don't have to create your own post, you can just repost.
Yeah, that's okay, right? Just sharing your,
Mhm.
the Give post.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
So typically, because I'm making the calendar for Mill Dog Rescues, we have a gal who runs their social media. So I'll take like the Give logo, throw in some of our dogs, make some copy and relate that, if there's text on it talking about joining our nonprofit partners, donating locally, every donation counts. So trying to use kind of the same tone and verbiage that the Give campaign uses, and then adding your own imagery to it. But yes, sharing is such a time saver. So if you guys don't share other people's posts on your feed, it's a very nice way to fill in those gaps if you're pressed for time. The other thing with scheduling is really important because a lot of people use, those third-party apps are everywhere. I've used quite a few of them. When I used to use Hootsuite, I actually did a test between scheduling directly on Facebook, for Facebook and Instagram, or scheduling on Hootsuite. And scheduling on Facebook and or Meta, the Meta platform itself, will increase your reach and engagement. So if you are using a third-party scheduler, you really should be posting directly on Meta instead. So I'm so sorry if anybody's using a third-party scheduler and loves it. The other platforms I really haven't seen a difference on, but it's just those two specifically. Again, Facebook is kind of a monster, and they make all these rules about, they really want you to keep people in the app. They really want you to use their app as much as possible. And so it's just another way that they're kind of forcing that. But I've tested it a couple times, and every single time those third-party schedulers just tank it on your reach and engagement. So it's a little bit more work, but you can still, there's a planner in there, you can still schedule ahead. But it just helps a lot. Especially if you're only focused on organic and you're not really doing boosts or paid ads. We got to get all the reach and engagement that we possibly can. So for Instagram, again, squares. So if you're making something for Instagram, just throw that on Facebook and vice versa. It'll work just fine. And then you have your story sizes, like 1080 by 1920, but Canva's got that template in there. With Instagram, it's a little bit of a younger demo. So like 25 to 34, 25 to 44-ish. And if you want it to be highly visual. So that's probably the biggest thing with Instagram is a lot of people will make like this beautiful graphic for Facebook or LinkedIn. And it's very text heavy. It's very stylized, and then they'll throw that on Instagram. It typically is not going to do as well because Instagram people want to think about like food or clothes and those things that pop, like that's kind of the style that you want to go if you're going to have an Instagram page. People's faces do really well. So keeping it low text on Instagram is important, and really focusing on the visuals and taking like really beautiful pictures of either your people or who you're helping or your building, or anything that you can that shows who you are is important on Instagram. So, and if you really have something that's text heavy, throw it on stories because stories tend to do well. A lot of people just check stories and don't check feeds anymore. So they're just like very fast and easy, and those are only active for 24 hours.
And you can never retrieve stories, right? Like it's posted in there.
You can go into your archive. So if you go into your settings and there's an archive section on the top right, and then you can pull your old stories and you can even repost them.
Yeah, right. And then you can make those a post and they'll live forever.
Yes, you can, depending on the size. So if you have a story that's, a long one, I'm so technical. And then you throw that on your feed, it's going to crop it to a square. So that's the other thing that's really important with Instagram is making sure that it looks beautiful on your feed. So you can do things where you can download it and recrop it. When you post reels, if anybody posts a video, it kind of automatically pushes you to post it as a reel. So the Instagram will just kind of lead you in that direction. But there are things where you can add a cover image so that it looks really nice on your feed. Or once it uploads the video, before you publish it, it'll actually let you drag it on your feed preview. So then you can make sure that it looks good so that somebody's like head isn't chopped off on your feed, or it's like all text. So just little things. There's also a new, I think I put a video, I hope, if I didn't, I will send it to you guys, but there's a really great video. I think it's in the resources, or I'll send Courtney the link to it, to help with the algorithm on Instagram specifically, where they have this, you can actually choose categories for what your video is relating to. So before you post your video on Instagram, you can choose like 3 categories, and then that'll help the algorithm.
I have another quick question, asking, can you elaborate again on sharing? As in, what would I be sharing off my Facebook page and to who?
Yeah. So on sharing, you would take, so I think specifically with the Give campaign, I would go to Give's Facebook page and choose a post that relates to what I want to talk about that week. So if it talks about, like, there was a class of 2023 post, there's some old living locals that are probably pretty evergreen. Just give them a quick watch, and then share those back to your page's profile, and then adding a little bit of copy, like, we're so excited to be part of the class of 2023, adding their hashtags, and then tagging them is really valuable. I hope that helps. So just let me know if they have more questions about that.
Okay.
But you can do it from any other profile too. So if you have, you can't really share from a group to a page, but even if you started a group on Facebook, you can take your posts that are on your page's Facebook feed, share them into your group, so you're not having to duplicate content. If there's a partner that you have, so National Mill Dog Rescue partners with Bissell, sometimes I could take a post from Bissell, and if it relates to what we're doing, or if it's like a special that they have, I could take that post and share it onto Mill Dog's page. And that really helps, because that's part of like the social part of being social. It's not just about blasting your own stuff, it's about really becoming a part of the community and shouting out your partners, and shouting out the people that support you. If you have big donors that own companies, taking one of their posts and even sharing it to yours, and that stuff is so valuable. And then the hope is that their followers will see that you did that. They'll come from their page to your page and start engaging and start following and become donors. So there's a reason behind it besides just wasting time. On Instagram also, there's a cool thing where you can add a donate sticker to that. So you can donate where it goes specifically to your nonprofit, just kind of like how the Facebook donate page works. But with the Give campaign specifically, you can add a custom link on there, even if you have less than 10,000 followers on Instagram. So that's just one of those stickers. So when you're posting, you go to like the sticker section, you can add a link, and then you can customize the copy on it. So instead of it just being this ugly link on your Instagram story, you can say donate now, help the dogs, give to give, stuff like that. So that kind of makes it just a little bit more polished. And then you can also add your Give profile link to your bio. So once the campaign launches, does anybody use like Linktree or a link like shortener? Awesome. So I really like Linktree. It's a free tool. And what you can do is you can have one code or one link, and then once people click that, it lists all of your things. So you could have, it leads to a landing page that has, you can have your website, follow us on social media, links to your Facebook, links to donation pages, links to events. So it's everything. And that's really, really handy for Instagram and for TikTok, because you can only have that one URL in your bio. So if you don't have Linktree, give it a Google. That one's really handy. And then that'll help, because then if you wanted to add the Give profile to that Linktree, you could add it right to the tippy top, and then people will see that first when that campaign launches. Is anybody on TikTok for their nonprofit? Okay, you are.
We are, we just don't know what we're doing on.
Okay. TikTok is tricky.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What's your nonprofit? Oh, okay, perfect. That's a great one to be on there for. So is anybody trying to reach a younger demographic than what you currently have? Okay.
I don't have the time.
Yeah, so TikTok is it's a little bit time consuming because it's videos. So, but if you are trying to reach a younger demo, it's very powerful. I'm really, I mean, everybody's on TikTok in some capacity typically. I mean, it's growing with I don't want to say older folks, but the 55 plus, you know, like they're embracing it more because it actually is really fun. There's a lot of stuff on there. I mean, it's got literally everything, but something that's really interesting is the younger generation is actually using TikTok as their search engine as opposed to Google. So us old folks, like I Google everything. Google is my jam, but for younger people, they're going to TikTok first and they're looking up everything on there as opposed to Google. So if you're trying to reach a younger demographic, TikTok is absolutely common misconceptions is that you have to do like a dance or be goofy or something like that. You can use it actually as an educational tool. You can give motivational talks on there. You can give tips. It's kind of moved away from the dancing stuff. So if you are not on TikTok, maybe download it and just let them. But do beware that once you start engaging with certain types of content, that is literally everything that will be in your feed. So if you engage with sad stuff, it's just the algorithm changes like automatically. So it'll just feed you what you're already engaging with, what you're watching more of, what you're liking and what you're favoriting. But that is also why it's so powerful. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I just want to say something about TikTok, and because I know we've been talking about sharing posts as well. I just want to say, like, it's very different on that platform to share. Like, if you want to share someone else's, like, so if you want to share someone else's TikTok, you can't. There's no like share button to share it to your own profile. You have to like. And for a young person, I'm not on it very often either. But I think it's called like remixing or something, or stitching. So that's like how you just share someone else's video to stay on your profile instead of just like sharing it to a different platform.
Yeah.
Because I know that can be like really tricky.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. Yeah.
I will say it's a newer thing just because for work of being on TikTok and stuff, you can do stitches, but you can actually repost on TikTok too. Yeah, so it'll show that you reposted it. And so essentially what it'll do is when someone's scrolling on the feed, it'll be like, next week's suicide prevention reposted this. So, or if you're following your friends, it'll be like, this person reposted it. So you can see like what other people are reposting. And then from TikTok, you can always link it to like your Facebook or Instagram, like you can upload it to there. So for Instagram or Facebook, I can't remember which one, you can upload it and it'll be like the screen, like the cover. And it'll be like, check out next week's suicide prevention TikTok. And then when you click it, it'll take you to the TikTok for people who don't use TikTok as much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you do that typically where you're reposting and you throw it on your stories? Or do
Yeah,
you do
so-
that on your feed?
Yeah, usually we'll put it like on our stories or like
Yeah.
reel or something like that, so that you can just click it.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up too. So I really love that because they do make it really easy to cross post between the platforms. And if you're doing it on stories, I think that works well. The thing with metadata is that what it's going to do is every time you make anything online, there's all this code that's attached to the back of it. I'm not a scientist or a data person. I don't know what it means. I know very basics, right? So, but what happens is you download that video off of TikTok, or let's say you repost it, then on Facebook and Instagram, their algorithm is going to recognize that you reposted that from TikTok. Technically, or what tends to happen is they'll say, oh, this is on TikTok, this wasn't made on our platform, and they'll deprioritize it, and vice versa, right? So like if you take your Instagram story and and you want to just re-upload that into TikTok, then TikTok's algorithm goes, oh, this is from Instagram, and then they deprioritize it. So a handy little workaround for that is you can download your video on TikTok right before it posts, or right after, I think before it posts, you can download it. And then I upload it into like I have an app on my phone called Video Leap. And so I upload it on there, take out any kind of logos. So like if the TikTok logo is showing, it's typically like here and here on your video. I'll just expand it a little bit so that's taken out, and then download that and then upload that to whatever platform, because then the metadata is not showing TikTok, it's showing that I made that myself. So it's like more original content. Yeah.
What was that app called again?
Video Leap. Mhm. It's my most favorite app. And then the other thing too, that brings up a good point is music copyrights and music licensing.
I just had a question about that.
Oh,
Are there any copyright laws about sharing or reposting someone else's?
Are, okay, so this is one of the biggest things, and it's, I mean, I don't want to say nobody's like scouring and nobody's really gonna come after a smaller place and be like, you use our music, but I'm all about compliance, you know, and like if you had an original sound or original music out there, you wouldn't want other people using it without permission, right? So every single platform has their own licensing, which makes it very fun for marketers. So when you are making a video on TikTok, it's really important to be listed as a proper account, right? You don't want to be an individual account, and you really want to be listed as a business account. And what that does is it gives you access only to licensed music that is available for businesses that you can use for free. If you are posting as an individual under your business account, you have access to all sorts of things, and that's non-compliant. And then same thing, TikTok has a different licensing than Instagram does. So even though TikTok is encouraging you to take that video that you just made and upload it right on Instagram, if that has music on it, even though it was commercially licensed on TikTok, it may not be commercially licensed on Instagram. Same thing with YouTube. So I keep forgetting what I put on this page, but there might, I did not put it on here. If you, if I don't have it on a later slide, there's actually some really good resources that show, you know, how you can check. One of the easiest ways is just make sure that you're using a business account on TikTok. It'll only give you access to those. On Video Leap on the app, they have story blocks, which are the commercially licensed sounds that I can use. So if I were to take like a musical tune that I love and put it onto a video and just upload that, it's super non-compliant. So just as businesses, it's good to like cover, you know, CYA, and then just be as compliant as you possibly can on those. Yeah.
So our thing is playing music. And we have to make sure that we don't play music in our videos.
If it's,
If it's your music, but you're playing,
is it like a cover? I just use Philharmonic.
oh,
The thing
no,
with that
that's
is-
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I think so when you create TikToks, a lot of people put like background music.
Mhm.
on it.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think that's pretty
As
right.
long as we're playing it and we have the
Yeah.
BMI.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
don't add like like pull a sound from TikTok, it'll just post it as like, it'll say if someone tries to click on that sound, it'll say like your account name and then original sound, and same thing on Instagram for their videos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good
so it'll
question.
just
No, I didn't even
upload
think
it
about that.
as a
Yeah.
sound. Yeah.
You play whatever you want, as long as you're, you know, it's your sound, even though, yeah, even if it's like,
As long as we're BMI compliant, we're okay.
And as far as, because I know we do pop stuff sometimes, as far as compliance goes for that, like as long as you've purchased the rights to perform it.
Yeah.
fine.
yeah,
That's the BMI.
yeah.
Yeah. My question was going on,
Yeah.
like the cover, that's my.
Yeah. Yeah, great question. And then the other thing, I know not a lot of people are on TikTok, but if you do get on TikTok, there's also a donation platform called Tiltify that you can apply for. It's kind of a bear, but it's kind of the same thing where you can accept donations on TikTok. So if that's some, you know, a direction that you want to go, that's pretty handy. And then with TikTok posting, you don't have to post every single day. It's just being consistent, you know, a few times a week. If you can post every day, but you can do that forever, then that's great. But really with all of these platforms, it's really just what can you manage and be consistent so that your followers know what to expect, so that it's not crickets 6 months out of the year or 8 months out of the year. So you're not bombarding people so they unfollow you a week at a time and then not doing anything. So that's where having a content calendar can really come in handy. I don't know what's on this next slide, but let's look. Oh yeah, okay. So LinkedIn, again, you can use, is everybody on LinkedIn for the nonprofit? Okay. So I like LinkedIn just because it's business people. You're also going to be reaching, you know, an older demographic that has more money to donate. So it's handy to be on. Posting a couple times a week is great. And then using 1 to 3 hashtags, including your brand hashtag. So kind of the same rules as Facebook. I would keep LinkedIn posts kind of organizational, you know, about the business, about how to donate, those impact stories, not so much like the fluffy stuff. Like what you might post on Facebook. So it's good for higher end donors. Blogs from your website, if you guys have a blog, those are great things to repost on LinkedIn. Events, donation requests, educational pieces, even like ways that you're, I mean, it can tie into a couple different things, ways that your Give campaign donation helps the organization, even those prizes and the incentives that they have could go on LinkedIn. But yeah, LinkedIn's pretty valuable. Do you guys use YouTube? Do y'all use YouTube for?
We do.
Perfect. So with those, it's a lot of, I mean, you're reaching, you know, men and women, but the biggest demographic is going to be, it's actually 18 to 34. And then the second biggest one is 35 to 54. So people don't like to read anymore. So videos are really valuable. The only thing with YouTube, and if you're making videos for, let's say, TikTok and Facebook and stories and YouTube, it becomes a lot because everything has kind of a different size. So an easy way to do that is because YouTube, you really want, I don't know if you guys ever watched a YouTube video and you see those like big black bars on the sides, it doesn't look great. So typically, if you were only to record one video, let's say for an educational post or whatnot, I would optimize it for YouTube and then have your subject far enough away that then you could crop it if you want to throw it on stories, or you could even make it a square, crop it into a square afterwards for Facebook and Instagram feed. So there's little workarounds that you can do so that, again, you're not having to rework your content 80,000 times or record the same video over and over again. If you can swing it, even having two cameras, so you could have one filming this way and one filming this way, is amazing. And it just saves you time. So then you don't get frustrated and then stop posting altogether. So as easy as you can make it is kind of the name of the game, because social media easily becomes a full-time job. So, and it's, so you can also add tags or cards onto your YouTube videos and request donations that way. So you can add a link to your Give campaign. You can add a link to a donation page right onto the video, and YouTube likes that, again, because they want to keep people in the app. And it just makes it easier for people to just be watching your video, become interested, and click that, as opposed to maybe going into your description, clicking a link and being led out and out of that experience. So it's a good best practice for YouTube. And then, are you all on Pinterest? Pinterest is great for women if you're trying to reach a women donor base. Who do you work with?
Oh, I thought just an individual.
Oh, okay. Yeah, individually. Yeah, Pinterest is amazing. So Pinterest is great for, it's like 77% women that are on Pinterest.
Yes.
Also, women are the ones who control the money, right? So we're the ones with the bleeding hearts. We're the ones who are going to convince the families to donate. So if you're not on Pinterest, it's a good idea, you know, to maybe dip your toe in. And again, it's the same kind of thing that you could do with everything else, where you're just repurposing the same content that you're putting on Facebook, throw it on Pinterest. It's just a really valuable way to reach women. The other thing with Pinterest that's really important is engagement. So the way to make your profile grow very quickly is to touch it a lot. And by touching, I'm saying like visit your Pinterest page like 3 times a week, maybe spend like 10 or 15 minutes. It's easy to let that go into hours, but if you can set a timer and do 10 to 15 minutes and post, you know, a couple posts and then repost other people's things. So that's what Pinterest likes to see. They actually don't consider themselves to be like a social media platform. They consider themselves to be like a doers platform and an inspiration platform. So you can pin other people's posts, and it's kind of the same thing where it's called like repinning. And then you can share, you know, inspirational stories or tips or educational stuff. You just obviously don't want to post competitors. But if, I don't know, is Give on Pinterest?
No.
Okay. I was gonna say you could post their stuff, but never mind. And then Twitter just rebranded to X. So all my stats on that are old because it's only been like 7 days. So, but typically it was for, short form, you wanted to tweet like 5 to 15 times a day. It's actually become really good for like celebrities to do like market research, or if you have a large following, it's very easy to get quick feedback. But we'll have to see what Elon does with it. So everything will probably change. So, so typically what I do on Twitter, just to like, or on X, is just reposting whatever I post on Facebook goes on that automatically. And there's a couple of free things that you can do. Like OneUp is a scheduling platform that I use that's very inexpensive. I think it's like $30 a month. Or you can go on Twitter and pre-schedule posts. Well, you used to be able to. Maybe you can do that still now. And then you can do things like if this then that, it's iftt.com. And you can set up all kinds of automations. Again, I wouldn't do it for Facebook and Instagram, but the other platforms, if you can automatically repost things and just take some time off of your plate, those are really handy. And then one of the biggest things is testing everything. So social media constantly changes. What worked last month may not work this month. It's really, really important to look at your analytics. And what's nice is every single platform has some sort of analytics that you can look at. So on Facebook, they will show you like a month over month. You can also look 90 days over 90 days. But it's really good to take yourself out, especially like if you're a creative and maybe you spent hours on this post and you're super proud of it. It's just important to take your feelings out of that and just look at the numbers and don't go off your feelings. Let's say like one of your volunteers or the CEO really loves this post, but it didn't perform well. You can look at the numbers and explain why you shouldn't be posting things like that. So what you're looking at success-wise with like a good social media post is high reach and high engagement. So it'll tell you how many people reach or how many like feeds your post was served to is your reach. On the other platforms, like you can see on Instagram and TikTok how many video views you got, or on Facebook, if you post a video, you can see that. But then engagement is going to be your likes and your comments and your shares, and they kind of lump those all together. So that's what engagement is. It's just people that are actively looking at your posts and then liking them, liking your page, stuff like that. So when you look at those things, and you can, like on Facebook, you can organize it by the highest reach, highest engagement. And then you can look at that and say, okay, so these, typically what I'll do is I look at this once a month. And I'll say, okay, a customer posted really, or like a donor posted really well. A live video did really well. This post that was, 3 minutes did horribly. This post that was 15 seconds did great, right? So you want to just look, and even looking at copy length. So this post that had, 4 paragraphs on it did worse than the post that had 3 sentences. So you look at all those aspects. So you're looking at copy, what kind of post it was. Was it an image, a video, or a link? Was it a request, or was it something that was like high value and telling a story? And then you look at those, and then it becomes really easy to just like segment out your top 3 to 5 types of posts. And then those are the things that you want to repeat. And then anything that's down at near the bottom, you just note what those are and maybe don't do those anymore. So it becomes kind of disheartening sometimes if you look at everything and you put in all of this work and the posts that you thought were going to do really well ended up not doing well. But it's just numbers, and every single page is going to be different. So if something on my page does really well, it doesn't mean it's going to necessarily translate, but just look at what your followers are actually liking, and then the algorithm will hopefully reward you, and then your followers will be more delighted and they'll hopefully engage more. Another thing that I love to do, because marketing is just stealing other people's good ideas, is looking at other pages that you love to follow and snagging those. So it's not, it's like clever thievery. But it's really just getting inspiration from other things, especially like if you're making a million graphics, or you're looking for things and you're just like feeling stuck, which happens to everybody. Even just Google imaging, Google searching for images that relate to what you're trying to do. You can usually find like, something that speaks to you, something that feels on brand, and then just make it your own. But don't be afraid to look at your competitors or the pages that you feel are doing really, really well and just kind of glean off of those ideas. That's what we all do. So it's just, I think a lot of people don't like to do that because they do feel like it's stealing, but it's very, very valuable. So on reach and engagement, as you're looking at your numbers, if you're under 10,000 followers and you're not doing paid ads or boosts, you can count to reach about 5% of your followers. So it's very small. If you have a small following, then it feels very tiny. So that can be kind of hard. But when you're looking at your numbers and you're thinking you're going to see these astronomical, reach numbers, remember that it's about 5% of your followers, and a good engagement rate for under 10,000 followers is about 1%. So it's really not high, but it gives you a really good goal. So as you're looking, if you're not hitting those like good reach and engagement numbers, then start, looking at what the posts are that are doing really well, just repeat those and eventually it'll get better. And then if you're over 10,000, I just looked at this the other day. It is, I think it's like 2%. For reach. So it goes smaller as your audience goes bigger. I'll find that exact number. I have it written down somewhere.
Okay,
So
thank you.
yeah. It's weird because once you get over 10,000, it just kind of like everything changes. So and another big thing is not being afraid to pivot. If something's not working, even though if you put your heart and soul into it, you thought it was going to work and it just didn't, just trash it and move on. It hurts, but it's definitely, it will reap success eventually. So do you guys have questions about any of those things? I know I'm throwing a lot at you.
I also have a question about the analytics.
Mhm.
But it's really easy to do analytics and what you find it on Facebook and.
So on Facebook, you go into your page and you go into, it's right on the left-hand side. If you're logged in as an admin, there's a small insights, but if you hit Meta Business Suite, it'll kick you to another page and then insights is on the left. Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know if you said this already, but when do you post things to what site? Like, does the time matter in the day?
Yeah, so there's a lot of varying opinions about that. And again, it's going to be your audience. So I would test. There's a lot of guidance. And I mean, I feel like every time I look at it, the guidance changes. So I didn't really include like specific days, but like typically I'll do LinkedIn on weekdays, but I test, like maybe 8 a.m., noon, and 5 p.m. to kind of see. Thursdays, actually, I think Wednesdays and Thursdays, the last time I looked, were a good day for Instagram. But yeah, they changed so much. So if you give it a Google this week, it'll change next week. But then you test and see where your audience is.
Yeah.
You used to be able to see on Facebook exactly when your audience was online. And I think they've kind of taken that away. I haven't been able to see it.
I still see a little bit. They'll tell me when I was like the most engagement happened and what times and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I mean, that's how I kind of go off of it. And they'll
Yeah.
tell me like when my audience is on the most, which mine is usually later in the day, but I want to get new people in, so I'm doing it at different
Yeah.
times. So
Yeah, and that's a good point too.
yeah, so I'm usually finding that depending on the day, I think earlier in the week it's a little bit earlier, and then later in the week earlier in the week you post from like 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Later in the week it's from like 11 to 1, and then weekends are sketchy. It depends.
Yeah.
For weekends you don't do great, but it just depends on the weekend, honestly.
It does.
Like if it's gonna be a rainy day kind of weekend, like I think you'll be fine, but if it's like a sunny day kind of weekend, it's gonna be looking at your phone.
Yeah, I try to shoot for like when people will want to just naturally take breaks from work.
Yeah.
So like probably right when they get in.
Yeah, see, that was good for Monday and Tuesday. I have like
Yeah.
9 a.m. and then later in the week I have like lunchtime.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
So, and I would say if you're unsure as to where your audience is gonna be engaging, then I would just test it. If you're gonna post 3 times a week, do Monday morning, Wednesday afternoon, Friday late afternoon, and then kind of switch those up and do that for a month and see where your best posts were. So A/B testing is, it should kind of be constant. And it's just because the algorithm's always changing. So it's never the same. So, for planning content and even, deciding what days and times you should post, I really like having a content calendar. It just kind of keeps it so that social media is so easy that, it's easy to get it shoved down to the bottom of your to-do list. It's not like easy. So sometimes if you don't have any plan, usually what will happen is by the end of, 5 or 6 o'clock hits and you're like, oh my God, I didn't post anything, or a week goes by and you're like, oh my God, I didn't post anything for a week. So having a content calendar, is really like an essential part of being successful on social media, and it helps create that strategy, and it makes sure that not all of your posts are overly promotional. So typically, when I'm saying overly promotional, that's when you're like asking people to do something, asking them to donate, asking them to RSVP or visit a link. You want to stay at like 70 to 80% non-promotional, which seems very counterintuitive. And then 20 to 30% is when you're doing those hard asks. So that's where it also gets kind of hard is, what the heck are you supposed to post about if you're not posting about what you need? But that's where those behind the scenes stories, getting people to know you and the organization, and then just leaving it. It's so hard to end your post and not ask people to do something, but it's really important to just provide that high value, be a real person. So you really want to do that like 70 to 80% of the time. It's not asking people to do anything, and just delight them and entertain them and be your fabulous self and, tug at their heartstrings, but don't make those asks every time. So with the Give campaign specifically, you want to define your social media goals. So it's probably most definitely donations, but it's also engagement and awareness, because the more people that are aware of your nonprofit and the more people that are engaging, the more their friends will see that. So it's really, I would say, engagement and awareness first, and then donations will naturally follow. And then choosing the right social media channel. So you don't have to be everywhere. I know we've talked about all the social media profiles that you can be on, but really it's just about finding what is reasonable for you to be consistent on and what you can do well and focusing on those. It's better to have something be beautiful and super on brand and really impactful on one platform than to have something crappy on 8 platforms. So if it doesn't feel right and it doesn't really hit, it's easy to just sleep on it, because one day it's not going to kill anybody, or just scrap it, and start over. So, and that's where it's just separating yourself from the feelings and the creative nature of this is really important. And then when I'm building a content calendar, I identify like key events and dates. So for a Give campaign, it could be, obviously the launch, but then you want to identify those key dates, the giving days that are coming up at the end of the year, how you're going to incorporate those, how often you're going to post about that, and then how you're going to post about that inside the giving campaign, and then even doing like the last chance donations. So I would set up, if I were doing a content calendar for this, November and December all at once. October, November, and December all at once. And even I would do, it's actually very easy to do like 4 or 5 months at once if you're doing a shell. So maybe even starting now, going through the end of the year. And I use Win Calendar, and then I just upload it into my Google Drive, because then it's just easy and editable. It's just a free calendar download. And so I can see a whole month at a glance. And then I'll just put how many times I want to post about Give, in August, September, October, November, December, and where those key giving days are. So I'm just plugging those in first. And then that gives you kind of a clear idea, like, am I pushing this too much? Am I not pushing this enough? And then making sure also that you're hitting all the key dates that you want to hit. And then in addition to that, doing, you guys know those days of the year that are really goofy, like Donut Day, and yeah. So those are good for fluff posts, because they do get a lot of engagement sometimes. You can hop on those hashtags. So usually it's like hashtag National Donut Day or hashtag.
Watermelon.
Yes.
Today as well.
Oh yeah, Watermelon Day. I got an email about that. So you could plug in those. I wouldn't do more than like one of those a week because they get kind of annoying, but they are really good for fluff. And those like non-promotional posts where you can also, you know, it can be entertaining and you can do something kind of goofy. And then you have the chance to reach new people who are maybe interested in that hashtag or interested in that subject who maybe have no idea that you exist.
So when you do that, right, like so a donut day, am I still using like my brand colors and stuff when I make that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or even just snapping a photo, you know, like if you do like for donut day, like getting like bringing donuts into your office, if you have an office, or taking like grab, if it's just you, like grabbing your favorite donut and like taking a picture of you eating it, or even on a plate, or, you know, like it doesn't have to always be a graphic. It could just be like a really simple, like real photo. But yeah, you do want to make it all your brand.
And you would always put like, you would put your logo on there too? Okay.
So on real pictures, you don't always need your logo on it just because it's going on your profile. So I feel like with adding your logo on everything, it almost takes away that authentic piece of it. So I would do both, you know, and your graphic ones definitely have your logo on. Your real life pictures, you don't need to mess with that.
What's the content calendar that you use?
It's called Win Calendar. So it's just a free like word download of a calendar at a glance.
I think what I'm using is not.
Yeah. It's I'm all about ease and free. So I've just been using it for years and it just works really well. It's very simple. It seems like with social media, like a lot of people want to make it very, very hard to do it on your own. It just takes some organization and some pre-planning, and just some like best practices and stuff. But I'm doing, so also like snapping pictures of everything, even if you think it's not interesting, just start encouraging your staff and volunteers and leadership, take pictures of everything. If you're working and it's a beautiful day outside and maybe you have a great view, or when you go out to eat and I was gonna say, and you're working. I work a lot when I go out to eat. So I'm always like, same
I
with you,
have
yeah.
bothered her while she's working and eating.
So like we run into each other places and we both.
That's
have our
how this came
laptops.
about, actually.
Yeah.
She was eating lunch and doing her work by herself, and I
Yeah,
was like, oh my gosh, she'd be wonderful to
yeah.
do this.
Because social media never stops. But yeah, if you are going, and also that's really good for like shouting out your favorite restaurants, shouting out local organizations, even if it has nothing to do with you or nothing to do with the Give campaign. I mean, it's really about creating that like human to human interaction. So take pictures of everything, upload them into a Google folder, and then you can source those later. So it just helps a lot because then you're not caught scrambling for photos of your team or of fun things to do. And then if you are writing your own copy, does anyone use AI tools?
I'm trying to find some.
Yeah, so I know ChatGPT is huge. I use
So
Jasper.
It makes it so easy because I just run out of content.
Yeah.
You know, so that just, yeah.
Yeah, so with Jasper specifically, because I haven't used ChatGPT because I've just been on this one forever, but you can build like a brand voice and you can say like, these are the things, this is who we are, this is what we're trying to accomplish and stuff like that. And then what it'll do is when you put in that prompt, it'll adopt your brand voice. So it doesn't feel like a robot. A lot of the things that come out of there are garbage, right? So like, you can't just take something that comes off of AI and use it as is typically. So you have to massage it and give it like a real human voice and change some words around. It's also pulling from basically whatever it can find on the internet or whatever you're feeding it. So sometimes it is quite off base, but you can do everything so much faster. It's scary to some people. I have an editor friend who like, I can't talk to her about AI too. Because she gets really, really mad. But it is very, very handy, especially if you're like, you're trying to write blogs, trying to write web content, newsletters. And because after you start saying the same thing over and over and over and over again, it just gets really boring inside your head and it gets boring to your followers. It's one of those things, I think it's actually made me a more creative writer, because it doesn't, even though I can't always use what it pops out, then it kind of sparks something so that I can say something a little bit better. Or if I say something, let's say I write a piece of copy and I'm like, that's garbage. I can put it in there and it can improve it for me and just kind of put in some keywords that maybe I wouldn't have even thought of. So definitely worth a try. It's very, very.
I haven't used chat GPT a lot, but I just put in, give me a 30-day plan for social media posts for, and then our mission.
Mhm.
And it's just like 30 days, boom. So it just
Yeah.
like prompts you, it like gives you something to at least
Yeah.
start with.
Yeah, yeah.
Idea, yeah.
And I think I did that the other day because I wanted to see what it would spit out. It was very, very promotional, but it did have some good ideas.
Yeah.
Because it just thinks about stuff that you just typically wouldn't think about. And it's pulling from, the power of the internet. So it's definitely a handy little tool. So I use it a lot. And then scheduling your content, we already talked about that, and monitoring results. So I wonder, I think I could pull up, well, let's see how far we get. What time is it?
We have about 10 minutes. maybe.
Time went by really fast. I know. I could talk about this forever. Okay, so I'm gonna skip what I was gonna show you guys, but I can,
If you
I
send
mean-
us, send us a link and we can drop it in
Okay,
the.
perfect.
we can
Yes,
drop it.
because this is kind of what we just talked about
Mhm.
how to build a content calendar. It's very easy. Especially if you're using somebody, like if you're writing everything and making all the posts and you're handing it off to somebody else to schedule for you, then they can, I link everything in there and then I highlight things when they're posted and like everything's very organized, but it's very, very simple. So best practices and just some like tools to use. Engagement is really huge. So engagement is something that hardly anybody does because it is very time consuming, but it's really a good way to get your page to grow organically. And it's really important if you don't have a paid budget. So with engagement, and that's just going into like what we've been talking about, sharing your partners' posts onto your page, going into partners or local businesses that you love, places that you frequent, places that donate to you that are companies, and going into their pages as your page and then commenting on their stuff. So it doesn't have to be anything big, but going in like 15 minutes a week, and commenting as your page, then all of their followers see your comment. Hopefully they will come back to your page and learn more about you. And then same thing when you're sharing posts from another page to your feed, you're just really trying to like show that you're being social. And it really should be like a give and take on social media, not just like this is our bulletin board, come give us money. So engagement is huge. And then you can also encourage your staff and your volunteers and your donors to do that too. Or your staff and your volunteers, to just comment on pages, join groups, you can join a whole bunch of groups that have to do with your mission, and then you can share your posts into those, especially on Facebook, and LinkedIn has that too. With hashtags, we talked about how those are really good for grouping conversations together. Something really fun that Facebook likes to do is try to autocorrect. So I'm like a big stickler on grammar and spelling. So especially as your nonprofit, right? Like you want to be professional, and spelling and grammar is the easiest way to get that across. But going back to your posts after they post, checking it, making sure that those hashtags didn't change to something that you didn't want. Just making sure that your copy's not cut off, that your videos, published the way that it should be is really important. And then boosting. Does anybody boost their posts or run ads or anything?
I do professionally, but not for
Okay.
the volunteer.
Okay, so boosts are good. Because again, with your organic posts, and organic is just unpaid, you're reaching 5% of your followers, right? So if you're trying to reach new followers, it's a decent idea to have just a small budget that you can apply towards boosts. And boosts is just, you can target people in your area, you can target specific age ranges, you can target specific interests. You could run a page likes campaign to grow your audience, to then increase your organic following or your organic reach. And it could be, Facebook recommends $15 a day. You don't have to do that much. So even if you just were to throw $5 at a boost and target a new audience, you should see your reach and engagement go up substantially. And then if you take that to, you know, your leadership, then, or if you're the person who makes that decision, you can see what the difference is. Because if you're putting all of this work into social media and making all these beautiful posts and taking all these photos and making videos, and then they get seen by no one, it's really not doing you any good. So I've had a lot of success on boosting just $5, $10 at a time on posts that make sense. And then we already talked about music. So, oh, I'm gonna give you some links. So the other, oh, that was it. Okay, so creating clear brand guidelines is really, really important. Speaking to your intended audience on the correct, posting consistently. It doesn't matter how much you're posting. No more than once a day on Facebook if you're under, besides you. Because it's really not going to help you. Planning ahead with and then using the social media best practices. And then this resource sheet has just a whole bunch of things, and then we'll send that out digitally so then you can click things instead of having to type it. The other thing that I do is, because I live in this world. So if anyone's ever looking for social media help, one-on-one training, group sessions with your team, stuff like that, I do all of those things. I also have a content calendar toolkit specifically for nonprofits that's launching on September 1st. So anybody who's interested in that, I'm giving deep discounts. It's usually like $150. So I'm doing it for $79 for Give specifically through the end of the month. So if you feel like you need help, there's definitely resources. And then that stuff's all, there's a whole bunch of free things that elevate your social media. So thank you for letting me share all my stuff with you guys. And do y'all have more questions? I'm so glad we got to answer them throughout, because that was
I'm gonna
helpful.
forget it at the end, so thanks.
Yeah.
That's what I was worried was gonna happen.
So is the information about the toolkit that you just referenced on that sheet also?
It is.
Okay.
Mhm. But does anybody else have final questions or anything like that?
Anybody online?
I have an embarrassing, it's not necessarily about social media, it's about logistics, funds going to, our campaign. Is that going through a Give website, or do we set up our own direct pay?
Comment, sorry, okay.
How do we collect money? And
So, great question. We provide the platform. So right now what we're doing, they are building out your web pages and everything right now. And then we take care of all of that. We process and take care of all that. And then, the first, I don't know if it's the 1st or 2nd of February, we'll have that, the party at the end, and then write everybody their checks. And then you'll have a breakdown of, what your matching grants were, if you received any outside grants from anybody, because sometimes like Elfmar will step up, Bloom Foundation, places like that. So that will all be broken out for you. So that's where that money goes. Great question.
Yeah, so the links we put on social media will direct to.
Yes, yes.
Cool. Okay.
Yep. And then, of course it was, it's always a good idea just to know how to do this in the meantime until we kick off. So
Yeah.
you can drive donations to your own websites and everything right now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, yep. So Kelly, yep. Kelly, I can help you out with that one. So she was just asking about a donate page or a donate button on her Facebook page, but I can help her out with that. That's a pretty easy one to do. They have a brand new page. So
Yay.
yeah. All
Awesome.
right.
But thank you so much. I could literally, I could talk about this for days and days and days. So this is lovely. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's some thank yous.
This was great, Rachel, or Courtney.
Good, Kelly. I'm gonna stop recording and I'm gonna close everything down. Y'all have a good afternoon, okay?
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know about this much or